Breaking news! The Buffalo Bills are in a heated situation behind the scenes. Buckle up, because we have some big news to share, and trust me, you're going to want to hear it every second. Before we go any further, make sure you've hit that like button if you believe the Bills have the potential to make it to the next Super Bowl. Dude, seriously, I'm a big believer. If you're a big believer, just write something like, "Go Bills, I believe." The Buffalo Bills made some serious moves in free agency, but before you start celebrating or panicking, let's get into the real analysis of what these signings mean for the team. No bullshit, no vibe analysis, just straight football talk. And I'll tell you right now, there's a lot to be excited about, but also some real concerns that need to be addressed. Let's start with the big change. Joey Bosa is a Buffalo Bill. Yep, you heard that right. One of the NFL's most dominant pass rushers when healthy, Bosa brings elite pass rushing ability and a powerful presence on the edge. But here's the thing, his health is a big question mark. Last season, Bosa himself admitted that he played most of the year at just 60 to 70% due to nagging injuries. He still managed to play 14 games, the most he's played in a single season in a while, but watching him on tape, you could tell he was struggling, not as explosive, and battling hip, back, and hand injuries. But here's the upside. His best game of the season might have been his last one, against Houston in the playoffs. That should give Bills fans some hope that, by the end of the year, he was trending in the right direction. And listen, we all know what the problem has been for this team in the playoffs. It's been getting pressure when it matters most. If Bosa can stay healthy, even in a rotational role with Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epineza, he could be the piece that finally gets this pass rush to click when it matters most. It's a gamble, but one with serious upside. Now, let's talk about another big money move, the long-term signing of Michael Hocht. The Bills handed him a 3-year deal, signaling that they see him as a key part of their defensive front for the foreseeable future. But, well, things haven't exactly started great. He's suspended for the first 6 games of the season for violating the league's PED policy, which is not the news you want to hear after signing a guy to a major deal. But once he's back, the Bills are getting a unique player. Hocht played all over the field for the Rams, lining up as an edge rusher, an off-ball linebacker, and even in the A-gap at times. The Rams called the third down rush package the cheetah package, where Hocht played a role they referred to as the spinner, basically a movable chess piece who can attack from different angles. This could be huge for Buffalo's defensive versatility. If Sean McDermott really taps into Hocht's skill set, the Bills might finally get more simulated pressures, 5-man rushes, and disguised blitzes, something this team could desperately use. The real question is, will the Bills actually use him in that way, or will they just stick him in a traditional edge role? If they lean into his versatility, he could be a game changer. And while we're talking about suspensions, we have to bring up Larry Ogunjobi. Like Hocht, he's going to miss the first 6 games, leaving Buffalo thin on the defensive line early in the season. But once he's back, he's a guy who could thrive in Buffalo's system. Over the past few years in Pittsburgh, he played more as a 3 to 4 defensive end, but his best football came in Cleveland and Cincinnati when he was playing in a 4-down front, exactly what the Bills run. Expect him to be used primarily as a 3-tech defensive tackle, with some reps at 1-tech. The big question? Run defense. Ogunjobi has had some issues with getting displaced against double teams, which is something that could be a problem if the Bills try to use him in that plug-the-gap role. But his athleticism is undeniable. He even managed to chase down Bo Nix from the pocket last season, which is not something you expect from a 300-pound defensive lineman. Once again, the Bills are betting on a guy's best traits rather than going for a traditional space eater at defensive tackle. Now, let's shift gears to offense and talk about a name that should have every Bills fan intrigued, Josh Palmer. If you're looking for a guy who can immediately help replace Stefon Diggs, this might be him. Palmer has been buried behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams with the Chargers, but now he's stepping into a situation where he could play a much bigger role. Palmer's biggest strength? Route running. He's not a burner, but his ability to manipulate defenders with his releases and route deception is elite. He's learned from one of the best in the game, Keenan Allen, and it shows in his game. Palmer knows how to force false steps, attack blind spots, and create separation, particularly in the intermediate game. The Bills haven't had a technician like this on the outside in a while, and while he's probably not a true WR1, he's going to be a reliable target for Josh Allen. And finally, let's talk about a couple under-the-radar signings that could end up mattering more than you think. First, Derek Forrest, a name that should have Bills fans excited. Forrest flashed some real potential with Washington, particularly in 2022 when he had 4 interceptions. He's athletic, physical, and plays with urgency, exactly the type of developmental safety that Sean McDermott has historically done wonders with. Given the uncertainty at safety, especially if rookie Cole Bishop doesn't take over the starting role immediately, Forrest is absolutely someone to keep an eye on. Then there's Dane Jackson. Yeah, I know, Bills Mafia has some strong feelings about this one. But before you start groaning, let's be real. Jackson has started nearly 30 games in this defense. He knows the system, and he provides valuable depth at a position where the Bills don't have a lot of it. This is a team-friendly move that helps the Bills keep a high-floor option in the secondary. One more name to keep in mind, Laviska Shenault Jr. Once a highly touted prospect out of Colorado, Shenault hasn't quite lived up to the hype in the NFL. But this is a low-risk, high-reward move. If he can finally tap into his potential, the Bills could be getting a physical playmaker who adds a new dimension to the offense. If not, no harm done. At the end of the day, the Bills aren't done yet. There are still holes to fill, especially at defensive tackle and cornerback. And with both Hocht and Ogunjobi out for 6 games, Buffalo might have to add more pieces before the season starts. But now I want to hear from you, Bills Mafia. Which move excites you the most? Do you think Joey Bosa stays healthy? Will Josh Palmer break out? And how do you feel about Dane Jackson sticking around? Drop your takes in the comments. Let's talk about it. And let's not stop there, Bills Mafia, because there's so much more to unpack. The front office has been methodical in how they've built this roster, but they're walking a fine line, betting on short-term impact while also trying to secure some long-term pieces. Some of these moves scream win now, while others are about building for the future, and the balance between the two is what will define this season. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, the 6-game suspensions for Michael Hocht and Larry Ogunjobi. This is a brutal start for the Bills' defensive front. You're talking about 2 key rotational pieces, one who got a 3-year deal, the other a proven veteran, being unavailable for nearly half the season. This isn't just about missing them on game day. It's about how the team prepares. Every rep in training camp, every defensive install, every chemistry building moment, they won't be part of it for the first 6 weeks of actual football. So what happens in those 6 games? Who steps up? Right now, the Bills' defensive line depth has to be a concern. Ed Oliver is the only truly established interior defensive lineman under contract beyond this season, and behind him, it's a lot of question marks. Jordan Phillips is gone. Daquan Jones is gone. Who is going to be that anchor in the middle when the Bills go up against run-heavy teams early in the season? That's the biggest concern. Buffalo's defensive philosophy isn't built on big-bodied run stuffers. It's built on penetration and quickness. But without a reliable force inside, you could be looking at some early season struggles against the run, and that's not something this team can afford, especially with all the turnover on offense. And speaking of the offense, let's go back to Josh Palmer for a second. This move might be bigger than people realize. Everyone's focused on Stefon Diggs being gone, and understandably so, but Palmer wasn't brought in to replace Diggs. Keon Coleman wasn't drafted to replace Diggs. The truth is, there is no one-for-one replacement for Diggs, and that's fine. But now, it's over to you. Which move do you think will have the biggest impact? Are you buying into the Bosa gamble? Does Josh Palmer feel like an upgrade? And how do you feel about Dane Jackson sticking around? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's get this conversation started.